Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aisha and you're watching Samaa News. Here are today's headlines.
The Pakistan Air Force carries out intelligence-based airstrikes on terrorist hideouts in Afghanistan's Paktika and Nangarhar provinces, following recent suicide attacks inside Pakistan, targeting camps linked to the banned Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, TTP, and Islamic State, Khorasan Province, ISKP. 7 terrorist camps were reportedly destroyed, and a commander identified as Akhtar was killed. Loud explosions were reported in the Bamal and Argun districts of Paktika and in Kogyani, Ghani-Kel, and Behsood areas of Nangarhar. The strikes come after attacks in Islamabad, Bajaur, and Bannu, including an assault on an imambargah during Ramadan, which Pakistan alleges were orchestrated by Afghanistan-based TTP leadership. The Bajaur attack killed 11 soldiers, and 12 militants were later killed in a Pakistani response.
Iran and the United States remain divided over the scope and mechanism of sanctions relief in exchange for limits on Tehran's nuclear program. A senior Iranian official said that while both sides are engaged, significant differences persist on how and when sanctions should be lifted. The official added that renewed talks are scheduled for early March, with the possibility of reaching an interim agreement. A police officer has been killed and 24 others wounded in multiple bomb explosions in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. Ukraine's national police say homemade explosive devices detonated around midnight. The first blast occurred after a patrol unit responded to a suspected shop break-in, with a second explosion following shortly afterward. Authorities have launched an investigation into the incident. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva says his country does not want a new Cold War ahead of his upcoming meeting with US President Donald Trump. Speaking at a press conference in New Delhi at the end of his 3-day visit to India, Lula urged Washington to treat all nations equally and avoid deepening global divisions. He emphasized that Brazil does not seek to interfere in other countries' affairs and supports balanced international relations. Russia has launched a large-scale missile and drone assault on Ukraine, targeting key energy infrastructure. The overnight barrage included dozens of strike drones, as well as ballistic and cruise missiles, with at least one person reported killed. Strikes were reported in Kyiv and surrounding areas, the Black Sea port of Odessa, and several central regions, including Dnipro, Kirovohrad, Mykolaiv, Poltava, and Sumy. Students at several Iranian universities staged protests at the start of the new semester, clashing with pro-government groups. Local reports and social media posts say the demonstrations coincided with 40-day mourning ceremonies for those killed in last month's anti-government unrest, the deadliest since Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution. Videos show marchers at Tehran's Sharif University of Technology condemning Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and calling for Reza Pahlavi, exiled son of the former Shah, to lead the country. Protests were also reported at Beheshti and Amir Kabir universities in Tehran, Mashhad University in the northeast, and in Abdanan, where chants of "Death to Khamenei" followed the arrest of an activist teacher. Australia's government rejects reports that it is repatriating Australians held in a Syrian camp with families of suspected Islamic State militants. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke said no official repatriation efforts are underway, and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirmed the government will not assist the group's return. The matter is politically sensitive amid rising support for right-wing anti-immigration parties. Islamic State is classified as a terrorist organisation in Australia, with membership punishable by up to 25 years in prison. At least 5 migrants, including 2 women, were found dead on the coast of Qasr al-Akhyar, east of Libya's capital Tripoli, authorities say. A child's body reportedly washed back into the sea amid high waves, prompting a search by the Coast Guard. Libya has long been a transit route for migrants fleeing conflict and poverty toward Europe. The recovered bodies were dark-skinned and found near Mohammed al-Sharif shore, some still in black inflatable lifebuoys.
US President Donald Trump says he will raise temporary tariffs on nearly all imports from 10% to 15%, the maximum level permitted under the law. The move comes after the US Supreme Court struck down his previous tariff program, ruling that he had exceeded his authority under an economic emergency statute. Trump had initially announced a 10% across-the-board tariff following the court's decision, before confirming the higher 15% rate. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto says his government is prepared to face all possibilities after the US Supreme Court rejected President Donald Trump's global tariff measures. Prabowo emphasized readiness amid shifting trade dynamics between the two countries. The Indonesian leader was in Washington this week to attend the inaugural meeting of Trump's Board of Peace and to hold bilateral talks, where a new trade deal was signed, reducing tariff rates on Indonesian exports to 19% from 32%. Iran and the United States are sliding rapidly towards military conflict as hopes fade for a diplomatic solution to their standoff over Tehran's nuclear program. Officials on both sides and diplomats across the Gulf and Europe say that Iran's Gulf neighbors and its enemy Israel now consider a conflict to be more likely than a settlement, with Washington building up one of its biggest military deployments in the region since the invasion of Iraq in 2003. A source familiar with the planning said Israel believes Tehran and Washington are at an impasse and is making preparations for possible joint military action with the United States. That's all for now. For more updates, visit www.samaa.tv. Thank you for watching Samaa News.